Good afternoon. I'm an RMT member and an RMT representative on strike here today and on the picket line at Highbury and Islington Station. The reason we're going on strike today is threefold. Firstly, the pension issue. So as part of the so-called bailout for Boris Johnson's government, we have had strings attached to that where the government want the TfL to do a pension review. Our pension is a healthy pension. It's 104% funded. It's £100 million in surplus. It's a pension that's open to everyone who joins TfL and London Underground. What they want to do now is water that pension down. They want to give us an inferior pension where ultimately our members will end up with far less money in their retirement pension pot. They've got no good reason to do this other than for the fact that they believe it's over-generous, to use their words. It's not over-generous, it's just a reasonable pension that we have as part of our contractual terms. The second point would be that the London Underground have told us they want to make 600, that's a minimum of 600 job cuts on stations on London Underground. So that's 600 fewer staff to help customers in the stations, to maintain the safety on the stations, to evacuate stations, and to assist customers in all the various different circumstances that we do. They expect the remaining staff to spread themselves thin across the network and still carry out all these tasks. They've not stopped at that. They want to make over £500 million in savings. That's £25 million that will save them on the 600 job cuts so far. So another £475 million worth of cuts is still to come. And that may come across functions like track and signal maintenance, our fleet maintenance, who maintain the trains when they're out of service so they can go safely into service the next day. That comes out of the service control workers who are responsible for the running of the trains on the railway every day. That will come out of the engineering side, who look after all the engineering work on London Underground, so maintaining all the assets on stations and trains and train depots and so on. And you cannot make that kind of savage cuts across an organisation like London Underground without safety being compromised. So we are striking for the safety of the travelling public there as well. It's not just about ourselves. The other part, our terms and conditions, we have negotiated agreements with London Underground which were fit for purpose yesterday, and London Underground are saying, well, they're not fit for purpose next week. Well, these agreements, these determine how the way we work. So
they're on paper.
These are on paper. These are negotiated agreements. They want to come back and rip these agreements up, tear them to shreds. So that would have us working all kinds of crazy hours. We already do all mixed shift patterns, so from 7 till 3, 3 till 11, night shifts and all this kind of thing. Yeah. So we work in general areas at the minute, and you'll sort of know where you're working. You've got some kind of small stability there. They want to take that stability away from us. So, for instance, we could end up getting asked to work far away from the locations that we work just now. That's more travelling time, more fatigue, all these kind of things within our agreements that they want to tear to shreds. All this is on the back of, not because they think that it's really going to make London Underground a better place to work. And they keep using terms like nobody will lose their job. Well, it's true that no individual will lose their job, but it's still 600 jobs going at the minute and work that we have to do of that 600 people that aren't here at the minute. So there's a multitude of good reasons why we're going on strike, and the press try to put it forward, and you'll hear this narrative of how much wages we're on and good money and all this and whatnot. Your average London Underground employee is not on 50 odd grand. The entry grade is around 26 grand on stations, and it goes up, and that's living in London.
Yeah, it's nothing.
It's not, for us, it's not the money part of it there at all. We're not asking for, we're already in a 4-year pay deal, so we're not striking to get more pay out of them or anything here. We just want them to honour our contractual agreements and our negotiated agreements with them. And it's unfortunate that we've had to take strike action, but that is the last action that we ever take. And we only take that when the employer has taken us to a position where they're no longer willing to negotiate in good faith, that they arbitrarily want to put forward these cuts and these changes to our terms and conditions and come and rob us of our pensions. And I'm sure lots of...
You can't let that happen.
No, we can't let that happen. And lots of people out there, you know, they say, well, they've done that to teachers, they've done that to nurses, then they'll do this to them. And that's the narrative the government and so on would want. But that's a race to the bottom. You know, when they talk about, well, why aren't you as bad off as them? Why can't you just be as bad off as them? Instead of the other way around and saying, well, hold up, let's try and lift people's working standards up. Let's lift living standards up instead of having that race to the bottom. So these are all reasons why we are left with no choice but to take industrial action today. And that's why we're on strike.